Hello, everyone. So glad to be here. So glad to be on your screen. Welcome to Kembali 2020, a Rebuild Bali Festival. It's really sad that we couldn't be in Ubud to see all of you, to talk to you, to stare at you, right your face. But it's a chance for us to get to know each other in the small screen, so you get to see what all the others are doing in their daily life. I just want to quickly introduce you to guys about Kembali, the festival. The Indonesian word for return is kembali, so we're all at home now. It represents revitalization in the face of global challenges. This festival will unite people in Bali and Indonesia together with an international audience at a time when travel is always impossible these days. And I hope that we can all connect and reconnect every time you can replay this video. Don't forget to make donations in the name of Kembali Festival. It's in the some buttons somewhere here in the website. So without me babbling, I'm just gonna say hi to you guys, to our special guest. Hi, Manal.
Hey,
Give
Lisa.
it up to Manal Younus. I'm also gonna be the crowd here today. Yay!
Nice. This is all the crowd I need. How are you doing?
I'm good. So, how's everything there in Adelaide?
We've been pretty lucky here in Adelaide. So things have been relatively normal for us for a few months. We're just all being cautious, staying aware, but we haven't had harsh restrictions or anything like that. So a lot of things have started moving again for us. Still kind of stuck in our states. We're not moving to other states or anything like that. But yeah, been pretty fortunate.
That's good to hear. Really wish we could have met in a green scenery of Ubud, but we'll do that very soon
in the future.
So let's get to the juicy stuff. I've been dying to talk to you about this. So, Manal Younus, you're Black.
I am. You noticed. Wow.
You're you're Black women living in the 21st century pandemic.
Never thought of it that way. Yes, I am.
Right?
Yeah.
Walk us through your life these days.
I wouldn't know where to start. I guess at the moment, do you mean in the context of being Black or in general?
In the context of pandemic, or raising you in the middle of pandemic.
Okay. I think maybe similar to a lot of artists, there's been a lot of both positive and negative, probably for everybody, with what's happening with the pandemic. So I've been lucky enough to have found a lot of space for myself to actually be able to write, less obligations to go to different places. Being able to attend events from my own home means that I've got plenty of time before and after to actually reflect and do what I need to. So it's actually been really positive in that sense. More difficult when you're used to traveling, and I don't mind not traveling, but it means being separated from people that mean a lot to me, and not being able to be there when they are struggling because they do have harsh restrictions, they have lost work. So that has been very difficult. And I think also with everything happening in the world at the moment, so this is really a time when you want to be with people, you want to care for people, because the political climate, the social climate, everything is so prevalent and it's so difficult to escape from. And it's hard to check on people through a screen. Sometimes you actually just want to sit in somebody's presence, and that's enough to change your day. But when you don't even have that option, so that's been a bit of a challenge. But my day-to-day has really just looked like maybe seeing a friend or checking in on a friend, spending a bit of time with my dad or my siblings, and then just writing, creating, recording, doing stuff that people may never see, but at least I'm able to kind of get everything off my chest, which is good. Yeah.
So from that end, you're a storyteller, right? Mm-hmm. Is it everything you wish it to be when you finally made up your mind, like, I want to be a poet, I want to be an activist? Has anything changed from the moment you start till now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I didn't really decide to be a writer. I didn't really decide on this career path until a couple of years ago. And I think it's only in this past year that I've really been like, I'm still doing too much. Like I need to hone in on exactly what I want and where I want to excel. So yeah, I feel like I kind of fell into the arts. I was always doing it on the side alongside my work, and then slowly it took over. And so there's always been this battle, even just a battle between being an activist and being an artist. You know, where does one stop and the other start? When are you able to just freely express something without being worried about the political consequences? And when are you able to be political and really trust yourself in that without thinking, but I'm just an artist, like I don't have a place in this conversation. So there's that battle's always there, but I think it's been more recently that I'm actually like, before anything, I'm just an artist. I'm just a storyteller. And if stories happen to be, political or talking about a particular issue, then great. If they're not, then that's good too. I shouldn't have to be accountable to everybody about every story that I tell. So that's a powerful place. So now it is kind of everything that I hoped it would be, just because I'm writing free of all these chains and all these ideas, and I've just immersed myself in what I think it might mean to be a storyteller. Yeah.
As an artist, so do you feel like, especially now in the midst of pandemic, in the climate that we are in now, and with everything that needs to be quote unquote politically correct, do you feel like now everything is political?
I think everything has always been political. I think it's impossible to separate them. I think how we address things though is the difference. So, whatever I say and do, it is going to, my position in society is going to impact that. There's no such thing as objectivity. And positions in society are political. So I think there's a difference between doing something and recognizing the politics in it and doing something with a political motive. And I do think that at the moment, there is a lot of pressure to do things with a political motive because of the conversation that's happening. And that is stressful. And so I'll often find myself, taking periods of time where I don't post anything, like I don't share anything, even though I feel like I really should, like whether it's information or something like that. I'm like, I actually just can't do that now because it's tampering with my own way of thinking, because everything is so politically charged. And I don't want to have that motive in what I create. I want, if it comes into what I create, it comes naturally because I'm telling a story of a person or a character, and it just happens to be part of their life. That character doesn't exist for that political purpose. So that's something that, I'm balancing at the moment.
And like I stated in the beginning of this session, you're a Black woman, Black millennial woman living in this current climate. With the social media movement these days, do you feel like sometimes people want to get involved in the movement without actually understanding the actual struggle, that someone like you would understand it even better, but actually choose to step back and to reflect more? Like, what's your thought on that?
I think it's an interesting conversation because, there's two parts to it. It's important that everybody learns the depth and the meaning behind everything that's going on. But the fact is that doesn't exist. Like, that's never happened with anything. Like, you still need people who may not be, as deeply involved, as deeply affected, or who may not be able to comprehend certain things to be involved. And so, and to kind of jump on the bandwagon and amplify voices and support the movements. And I think that that's a big conversation at the moment, where people don't actually know where they stand, how to get involved, how they can do things. And there are so many issues in the world. I mean, we could be talking about Black Lives Matter, but there's so many communities experiencing different things, so many countries experiencing different things. So, and there's a lot for people to take on. So it's actually way too much to expect people to truly comprehend everything that's going around, everything that's happening around them for every issue. And so I think that there needs to be compassion. And I think that people's expressions of allyship, obviously if they're doing something that's harmful, we do need to like alert them to that, because I'm sure they don't want to be harming anybody or harming a cause. But I do think that, we can't, the expectations on people are too high. And I mean that for everybody, I think, at the moment, just because of how prevalent these conversations are now and how they've come into every aspect of our lives. And it's conflicting saying that, because obviously for some of us, we can't remove them from our lives. I can't stop being Black. I can't stop experiencing these things. I can't, but it's just, I'm not going to wish that on somebody else. I'm not going to have that expectation that somebody else now has to know what that feels like. I expect them to have compassion and understanding for the fact that they don't know what it feels like, and therefore they should listen and make space. But I think, I don't know, I think we're all kind of not sure where the lines are drawn now at this moment, because everybody wants to do something, but not everybody can do something. Or can do everything. Not everyone can do everything. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. And I don't think anybody should have that burden on their own. When you walk in the party, or later on when we meet in a few years, if you have to choose just one part of your identity, just one, because you have what we like to call it in the mainstream media, the wild card. You live in, you're born Australian, but you have other kind of facets of you. You're you're Muslim, you're Black, and you're a woman. That's like a wild card, right? But it gives you so much, nuance in the way you deliver your story, because your story is pretty much the reality that a lot of people aren't able to grasp. So if you can pick just one, if it's even possible, because like you say, it's just, it's just you, it's just a part of you. But if you can just pick one part of your identity and you can kind of mute the others, which part that you would stick with? Tricky, but I know.
Yeah, that's huge. Do you know, I could think about this a lot, and I could worry about the political consequences of what I'm about to say, but I'm going to be true to the first thing that came into my mind, and I think that it would be my tribe. So my tribe is Djibouti. It's one of many tribes in Eritrea within 9 ethnic groups, and the reason I choose that one, is because I think that one carries my context. Everything else changes over time, has different meanings over time. Even I would say being Eritrean, but that wasn't even a thing 100 years ago. So the thing that has actually been in my family, it holds my culture, my language, my history, is probably my tribe, my ethnicity, and it connects me still to so many people around the world. So I think that would be the identity that I have. It's not it's highly political in Eritrea or within the Eritrean community, because we try to kind of not talk about tribes and ethnic groups because it's seen as divisive. But I think that there's in all honesty, that's the one thing that it can't be changed. Before we had countries, before I was Black, because it was a place where everybody was Black. Before Blackness was a thing in my life and in my reality, before Westernization was a thing in my reality, before globalization was a thing, before all of these things, I think, this is what connects me to everything I was before. Yeah.
Tell us more about your Eritrean community. What's not included in, if I Googled about your tribe, what's not available for us to actually know, because everything we read on the internet is pretty on the surface stuff, but what can you tell us that we wouldn't be able to find out online?
About my tribe or my Eritrean nationality? Okay, because they're very different things. Okay. So what could we find?
The core of it.
Yeah. I think it's like the fact that it's a really good question. You should have given me a heads up about that one. I could have done some research. I could have thought about it. I think the fact that, you know, we are in a
something only your family will understand. Only a fellow tribe will understand. They'll be like, yeah, and we would be able to relate. Like, you know, some kind of even like a family inside joke. Only you guys will understand.
Yeah. Okay. I can't think of like a family inside joke, but I can say that there's something about. So in my tribe, we're not nomadic in the sense like living off the land. We were very much like business people way back. And obviously this is not everyone, but this is kind of what we were known for. And so when we travel around throughout both Eritrea and Ethiopia, we like that's what we would do. We would bring business. We're known for being tailors in Eritrea. So there'll be like streets, like a street that you can find where almost every shop would be a Djibouti tailor. And I think just things like that speak a lot to how I've been raised in terms of creating and, you know, paving a new path for oneself, you know, like bringing community together in order to build. And I don't think it's unique to my tribe, but I've definitely learned that to be part of my identity through my understanding of my tribe and how we've lived for so long. And even just feeling like I can live anywhere in the world, because as long as I can create, as long as I have my skills, I can set up shop anywhere. I can learn the language and I can do whatever I need. And so that's always been my mentality, because I've seen that's what my father's done, what my grandfather's done, what his grandfather's done. And it's just, so that's probably one thing. Like we're kind of the traders, the capitalists, if you will, if you want to look at it from a different light. Yeah, you can't always act like it's a great thing, but it was alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have like any funny, fond memories while you're growing up, and you wonder like, this is what, like you say, it's nothing out of the ordinary for you guys, but let's say when you start primary school and then you start realizing, oh, this is not what general people do. This is my thing. Is there any kind of that story?
Yeah, there is. There's quite a bit. So I actually wasn't born here. I came to Australia when I was 3. And there was a lot of like little things. I remember when I first came, obviously Eritrea was colonized by Italy. So we have a lot of Italian in our language. And it like little things like I came here and then I'd see white people saying ciao and other Italian words. And I was like, you speak Tigrinya? Like what? You speak my language? And it was just so confusing. And then later on I learned, oh, that's not just mine, you know. And then afterwards there was just like little cultural things like realizing that, you know, people found it weird when you ate with your hands. People didn't have water in their bathrooms. You know, other people just like, just ate certain things. And it was just, there was a lot of things that, I didn't realize how foreign things were, but I was still quite young. So I got accustomed very quickly. But my brother and my sister have hilarious stories because they were older. And so things are even more foreign for them. Yeah.
I think that's also the thing that us Asian can relate. The kind of food and languages, it's always the two things. Do you have your favorite traditional food that when you eat just makes people stare? Because we know that, to me, Western and Eastern food, they're very different. The Western food to me is quite bland, but I feel like you can relate with me in this. We have so much spices and herbs.
Yeah.
Tell me what's the meal like in the Younus family?
Because like I've been doing a lot of the cooking for a long time, and we had like lots of different influences because my mother didn't come. So already that's like a big in terms of like you don't have somebody like cooking the traditional foods every day. So it's kind of a mix. I mean, I'm fine with just having like veggies with a bit of seasoning. I'm a bit of a disappointment to my culture. I can't handle things that are too spicy, but neither could my dad. So that's where I learned it from. But yeah, like I do love to cook our traditional foods. My favorite traditional food is called gat. And that one is definitely one that like, if you don't know it, like it's basically flour and water, but you cook it a certain way. And then you just kind of like eat it either with your hands or a spoon, dip it in some chili, dip it in some yogurt, dip it in some butter, and bam. And it's so good. And it's flour and water. And I don't know if I could ever eat that in public because like I don't know, it's a mess, it's just, yeah. Do you have a food like that you're just like, I wonder if I could actually eat this around white people?
Every food of Indonesian, every Indonesian foods are like that. They'll just stare at it because it looks horrible, but it tastes amazing always. What's the food called?
Gat. So gat. Gat.
Is there any English translation to that? Gat.
So they try to translate it as porridge.
Yeah.
But it's not porridge. It's really weird because it's like a big piece of dough, but I think porridge is just like a wheat and water, and so maybe that's why they translate it like
simple
that.
For that. Yeah,
you can't translate these things. Like people try to translate injera, which is what we use instead of bread, and they call it like a pancake or a crepe, and I'm like,
it's not as poetic, right? Food needs to be poetic, I feel like. Do you write all of your poetry in English, or do you write it in other languages?
So only in English. I have written a poem in Arabic, and I do integrate. I know. It was when I was studying it. But I do try to integrate. I don't even try. I naturally integrate words from Tigrinya and sometimes from Arabic into my poetry, just because if I'm telling a story and that's the word that needs to be used, you can't, just like we said, you can't translate gat, you can't translate injera, you can't translate the words that your grandmother has always said, because then they're no longer her words. And so I try to keep that authenticity in there. I don't think we should ever change something until it's changed something for somebody else's understanding to the point where it's no longer true.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Does it get lost in translation? Because I feel like for us with kind of who has other part of cultural in us, I feel like there's always this responsibility to explain it to English speaker, what it means, because if they don't understand it, then it's almost deemed like irrelevant if they don't understand it. Do you have that kind of pressure when you trying to concoct another like poetry in other languages?
Yeah, sometimes. Like even that Arabic one that I just mentioned, I'm currently like working on turning it into something, like I've been recording it, and I feel like I'm putting English there because the whole thing is about identity, and in the end English is part of my identity, but I definitely also because I was like, if I just put this out there, so much of my audience can't hear it or understand it, and what is the point of that when my audience are English speakers? But then there's in a lot of my poems though, if it's just one or two words and it won't impact somebody else or the feeling, that because my poems less about understanding and more about feeling. So if they can still get the same feeling without knowing what I've said, I won't translate it. And if I have a chance to speak at the end, I might let them know what this particular thing was. But if I feel it will change the feeling, like if there's this one poem where after every line, unless I'm with an Eritrean audience, after every line I translate that, but it's only a few lines. And it's because it's it's really powerful and it's really intense, and you have to understand that part to feel what the poem is saying. So yeah, it's all discretion.
Yeah, and I feel like that is the big thing that mainstream media feels confused about. Like that Arab is a language; it's not something particularly stick within like a certain religion. It's a language, and to me, it's the most beautiful language. Like the scripture, it's basically calligraphy, right?
It's stunning.
And it's so poetic. In every greetings are poetic, and I feel like when we have to write in English, it's actually quite limiting. There's so many words that. Can you give me a few words that you tried to explain in English but just got lost in translation to the point that you just chose not to use that word? Because you told me you use a few Arabic words, and sometimes most of the time it gets lost in translation. But yeah. Can you give me a few examples maybe? Because I remember when if we say inshallah and everybody will be like, what's that? It's just like a break a leg, or I wish you luck. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But it's not, but it is.
Yeah. Sort of. I guess like the simple ones. I mean, I don't use them in my poetry really, but just in general in life, things like even mashallah, like how do you describe mashallah? Like it's, at least with inshallah, it's like God willing. It's really common in other, that translation is common, but mashallah, subhanallah, where you're kind of, it is a blessing for somebody when you say mashallah, you're praising them, but also praising God and praying that he gives them more of that. And I find that interesting because you're not going to stand there and explain to someone when they ask you what it means, that actually, we might accidentally be jealous of somebody, and we might accidentally be wishing bad on them in our subconscious without knowing it. And this protects us, you know what I mean? By making sure that we are actually praising them, we are actually, and you can't say all that. So you're just kind of like, okay, let me just, yeah, exactly. So there's quite a bit of that. And with Tigrinya, a lot of the time, because there are some words I just don't know in English, or they're just strange and foreign in English because we don't use them, but they're really common for us. The expression itself is really common. Yeah.
And which poem did you perform for the slam poetry? Poetry slam, no, slam poetry. Which poem did you perform first on a poetry slam?
The first one ever, I don't remember it. I was 15 at the time. It was about happiness. It was like scribbled on a piece of paper. I didn't know I was going to go on stage. I didn't know what a slam was. I thought I was just hanging out with poets. Yeah. So that one's like thrown away. I don't know where that is. Yeah, that's it. It's not very exciting.
So tell us the story of how you actually, immerse in this realm of poetry. And I like to believe that there's always that moment of like everything clicks, like oh, this is what I'm supposed to do in life. This is my calling, prophet of poetry, what I like to say. Like, do you have that kind of moment?
Nice. I think I had a few moments, and then it took me a while to allow those moments to really sink in. So there wasn't like a moment where I was just, everything was done. It was like, this impacted me, this impacted me, this impacted me. And I think the first one that I can remember was at this, I was working for an organization that advocated for refugees and new arrivals in Australia. And there was an event that we were having, and I was asked if I could share a poem, because I was just basically only doing poems at, rallies and stuff like that. At the time, I didn't realize it was a thing I could do. And so I did. And then I realized when I was up there sharing the poem that was actually the most powerful thing I could do in that situation. You know, some people are really brilliant organizers, and I'm okay at that, but that's not my strength. And so writing that poem, telling that story, giving people that insight and that vision, I realized that's actually my best contribution to this situation, to this movement, to this cause. And then it happened again at another event. I think the next one was for Palestine. And I was like, you know, as a non-Palestinian person, all I can do is advocate. And then when I wrote that poem and I was able to, you know, create that connection between any non-Palestinian person kind of looking on at the situation, and that in itself, I was like, that's actually the most powerful thing I can do. And then I continued to carry that on, and I was like, this is my contribution to the world. This is my contribution to issues. This is my contribution to society. My contribution to, you know, to young people in the next generation is going into schools and sharing stories and showing them they can share their own. So I think it took a while for that to sink in, but now instead of trying to be anything else, I try to prioritize what I can do and what I've chosen to contribute to things, and hone in on that skill.
And on that note, would you like to share with us one of your poem from your book, Reap? Is it okay if you perform for us?
Absolutely, I'd love to. You did mention before something that kind of, that you were thinking I could share something that looks at the current political climate. This poem, I think, it's not specific to any particular issue, but I guess it's, like I said, I've worked on so many different issues and tried to stay across everything, and it's virtually impossible. And I think we can get bogged down in it. And we have to remember to keep living. And that often, especially when you're a minority, whatever minority means, but a person of color, when you're struggling with certain things, we forget how much power we actually have over our own life and our own destinies, and over the people next to us, and of how they can impact us. And so this poem is a little bit about continuing to live through all of that. So it's called Can We? Actually, I don't need this. I miss the simplicity of positivity. See, dancing once elated me until every stage my toes tapped to seemed to decree deeper, darker pages. This rage ringing relentlessly, I couldn't balance the beauty, and bereft, I couldn't work out the steps, tripping on my pirouettes, though no regrets. Now I let revelry replace my destructive mindset. So can we just dance like leaves fallen on the road, sweeping swiftly down streets, round corners to new episodes? Can we speak through our movement like some kind of code? Reviving lost languages, we, light and latent, listen like learning is life's love. We could salsa to the whistling wind, only soil beneath the soles of our steady steps, serene, but not sedated, content, but not complacent, forgiving ferociously, but cautiously. Won't you forgive me? For I am bound to step on your toes, to let emotions flow and treat you terribly when overwhelmed with woes. And we know how it goes. We might have to dance slow, somber, clinging closer to memories of cool caress from those we let go, praying we let them know that we let love show shades of hope and not just shadows. As the sky does beautiful things above the ocean, we could dance toward the sunlight, toes wet with warm waves moving effortlessly. And when we're heavy, we can cry crystal tears to sweet songs sung by bright birds. On those dismal days, we'll dance until the pain fades, until the raindrops dripping drop on dry terrain and the barren becomes fertile again. Though towers may always tower over us and greatness may always be waiting over the next cusp, it may remain something that we just cannot harness. Can we dance regardless? With the backdrop of vivid visions of victory, can we fall victim to adventure, doubting our doubts until they're too doubtful to doubt us, fostering long forgotten feelings of freedom manifest in our queendom, where our anthems are peace, prayer, and poetry. So can we? That's it. That's what I got for you. Hey. My goodness, the whole audience is clicking for me. Thank you.
Yes, figures are around. Thank you for that. Oh, there's this my favorite thing, I think. Content, not complacent. I feel that. I feel like that kind of sums up our generation. Content, not complacent.
Yeah.
Because especially right, with this political climate, everyone wants to pitch in with their voice. But I think, like you said just now, not everything, while everything is political, but not everything that needs a political intent. And I love that you're using your poetry. What can you say to our fellow friends that are watching this session? How can we use our voice to magnify our, what we believe in? But we don't necessarily need to use politics to kind of give our stamp of, complaint. Like true poetry, yes, but in day to day, especially now, because we can't really go out, we can't really march on the street with the whole pandemic going on. What will be the one or two ways you think they can get themselves active?
I think that sometimes it's not everybody has to be an activist, and not everybody is going to be an activist. People have different interests and different skills, and for some people it's not even about using their voice, it's about how you incorporate certain principles into your daily life. There are so many things that we're encouraged to do that are almost tokenistic, and it really comes down to how we treat others. And I don't just mean just being nice to others. That's a very, it's not just being a good person, but being aware of who we are in a space, what we're doing, what we're representing. If you're designing things, take into account your influences, the cultures that are there, your own biases, who you include. If it's just about, like going to events, making space for people. I'm trying to think of random examples, but it's literally just like in myself, it's how I do things, for example, with First Nations struggles, right? With Aboriginal people in Australia, that is so vast, but there's actually not that much that I can actively do except for going and marching in the streets. But I can always make sure that I acknowledge the land that I'm on, which I didn't do at the beginning of this, but it's so much a part of how I speak that, anytime that I'm talking about people of color, anytime I'm talking about ownership, anytime I'm talking about ethnicity, they are front of mind. Anytime I talk about race in Australia, that they will be at the center of that conversation. And it's just simple things like that, not forgetting their existence, not forgetting that any struggle that we have as Black people, as immigrants in this country, it impacts them in another way, and we actually benefit off of their oppression. And it's just recognizing that, understanding that, learning. Maybe your thing is not reading, maybe your thing is not speaking, your thing is reading and understanding and sharing it with your close friends. Learning what was here before, learning the history. And there are just so many ways that you can do it, but it's about how you interact, who you are, what you take in from the world and what you put out there, what you decide that you will acknowledge and you will see, what you train your eyes to see, and then how you allow that to impact your everyday actions. You don't have to get out onto the streets. I go to as few protests as possible. Protests are not good for me. They're not good for my personality. They overwhelm me. They stress me out. They make me emotional in a way that I don't need to be, because I'm already so emotional all the time. So I will only go to, like, if I can see a clear outcome from a protest and I can see how valuable my voice will be there. Otherwise, I will do my activism in another way. I'll contact the organization who's running the protest and I'll be like, hey, what can I do to help? I can't actually come on the day. What can I do? So there's always other ways to do it. And I think we need to be true to who we are and take that time to recognize that. And again, what our voice actually is, what our best contribution is. Who are we and how can we utilize who we are to make a change in the world around us? Because the world around us will eventually translate into the bigger picture in the rest of the world. world is made from lots of little worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important to hear as well, because it may sound simple, just staying true to ourselves, but it's one of the most difficult thing to kind of accomplish, because I feel like we've been told, especially as women, we've been told like we have this expiration date, like at this age you have to pretty much know who you are, and then when we kind of stray from our path, then people will give us, roll their eyes like, are you not doing what you're supposed to do, but you're supposed to women to women. What, tell me one thing that you're so tired of people asking you, because I've got like plenty, but being a woman is just like one part of it. I wish it's not, I wish it's not even a question for me to ask you, but it's such an important question to ask. What is the one thing that you're tired of people asking you, just simply because you're a woman, not even a woman of color, not even a poet or activist, just as a woman?
To be honest, if you asked me the same question, even about being an activist or being a person of color or anything like that, I still don't know if I'd be able to answer it, just because I think I'm in such a space of security with every aspect of my identity that it actually doesn't bother me when people ask ignorant things anymore, or things that, would have annoyed me previously. I just let them kind of roll off. Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna be petty about it, maybe like not petty, sorry. If we're gonna be nitpicky about it, probably just like, when are you getting married? And
the age question, yeah.
Exactly. When you talk about expiration date, it comes up every time.
Always.
Yeah, that's probably it. But I mean, even that doesn't really bother me as much anymore, because I'm just like, I don't know. That's the answer. That's it. It's no longer a trigger. So I don't know.
How do you get to that place? Like, what's your happy place? Because we'll always meet those people, and sometimes it's not even because they have malice intention. It's just one of those lazy questions, because they can't somehow come up with interesting questions. But what's your happy place when you have to deal with that kind of aggravating remarks?
It's not, I don't even know if it's a happy place. I think that it's as simple as there's this balance that I think I'm finding, of like how both significant and insignificant things are at the exact same time. And so when somebody does that, and that's myself and everybody else. So when somebody does that, I just think of how small this interaction is. Why does that keep happening? How small this interaction is in the grand scheme of my life, their life today. And that just, for me, that's just everything. Like, nothing can be taken too much to heart. If they're standing in the way of me getting something that I need to, that's different, right? That's the kind of thing that I am active about. That's the kind of thing we try to change, when these people represent structures that are in your way. But when that's not the case, these things just don't get to me, because I'm like, this is insignificant. This doesn't matter. Look at who I am and what I've achieved, and I don't know their context. I don't know their story. Who are they? How did they get here? What's bringing them to this question? And obviously there are, we can often deduce that like it's because of ignorance that they've heard somewhere, or this and this and that. But the truth is that even in that situation, like, maybe it's not, maybe it comes from somewhere else. Maybe it comes from the particular experience that they've had. And I just think that it's not even like letting them off the hook. That's not how I see it anymore. I see it as letting myself off the hook, allowing myself to not have the heaviness of all of these preconceived ideas that I have about them and what they're saying and what it means to me. So yeah, I kind of just let it pass. So the world becomes your happy place, because it's like this doesn't matter. The rest of the world is here, and the rest of the world is is beautiful, and or at least my world is, you know, the world that I've created around me, my networks, my place, everything. So yeah.
Do you have the same kind of attitude when it comes to your poetry, especially now when you're starting to putting more stuff out online, and we will never know how people will respond to our content, because I feel like once you put it out there, you're like, okay, it's no longer ours, it's theirs, and there's only do you experience that kind of jumpy feeling now?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm getting better at it, at like letting things go like that. But this is different, you know, this is not just a moment that then is going to disappear. You know, and you never have to think about it again. This is something that people can bring up in the future, that, you know, people that you didn't expect to see things will see. You think about how many different audiences or types of people are there, the different. So I'm learning to let go at that level. And I'm really excited to, but it's still, I still get nervous. I still get kind of paranoid. My sister will get random calls, you know, while she's at uni of me just being like, hey, I just need you to watch something to see if it's okay, you know? So yeah, like that, I'm still working on those insecurities. Yeah, hopefully I'll get there soon.
And I feel like it will never change. I feel like I believe we'll always have that, you know, that anxiety, because as you see now, celebrities are, you know, they're being haunted by their old tweets, their 5 to 8 years ago, and now they're getting the blame of it now. I don't even think they remember that they, you know, posted those things. How do you see the growth of, you know, social media in terms of being an artistic outlet? You know, should there be, do you think should there be any filter, like a standard, or because now everything goes, right? Everything goes online, so you kind of, you're not sure where is the bar here. Is it proper? Like, do you think it's almost like a little bit of censorship? But I feel like a bit of censorship is good. It makes you think deeper. But what's your thought of it?
I think as a platform for artistry, I think that the freedom is good because it has allowed people to grow and have access to growth in a way that they may not have before. Because if you start curating things so early on in somebody's journey, then you can often completely stunt their growth. And so the fact that social media has allowed people to really take control over what they do and their audiences and everything, I think that that's a powerful thing. I think there will always be curated spaces where, you know, only things that are at a certain quality or do a certain thing will get you, and people who want that will go to those platforms, whether it's, you know, Spotify or for music, for example, or Vimeo for content, like instead of YouTube where anyone can post anything, subscribe to certain people. I think that will always be there. It is getting, and I admit, even for myself, because I'm not a scroller or anything, it's getting really hard to sift through and find what you actually want and what you actually like. And there's so much stuff. So even though I'm overwhelmed by it and it's not my cup of tea, I don't think that, you know, putting barriers for people is the way to go. Yeah. And I think it almost teaches you something else. Like for me, the online presence is really new. And I think that I'm competing like against, you know, I don't really see it as competition, but I'm competing against people who've, you know, just been making random videos for ages about nothing. And I'm trying to bring this world that I've had in real life onto online. And it almost feels like it doesn't belong there. Like but I think that that's a good challenge, you know? Like it shows me that like I haven't, just because I can do this here, it doesn't mean that I'm an expert here. You know, it doesn't mean that I immediately deserve my space here. Doesn't mean that the thousands of people that watch me in real life in events and things, it doesn't mean that that's going to translate to this space. I do need to build something from scratch. And I think there's power in that, you know, it's almost an equalizer, like so it's not negative.
And like you say, speaking of curated platform,
yeah,
do you think that you'll ever be on TikTok with your poetry? I just have to ask this. This is such a major thing today, right? Like, do you ever, are you even thinking about it?
Oh, I've definitely thought about it. I've downloaded TikTok and signed up twice and deleted it once. I still have it now, but I don't go on. I don't upload. I don't anything. It freaks me out. There's so much that, like, first time I went on, it was just like, 1.2 billion of this type of video, 1.2 billion of this type. And I was like, I can't watch a billion videos. I mean, and I couldn't get through like 5 because they were all just repetitive and there's too much. So I've thought about it, maybe one day if I feel like I've just got like heaps of little poems that I can put out there, but it's not, I think I try to stay away from anything that's quick and fleeting. That's why I don't watch hard news, and I'm trying to work on, platforms that are a lot more substantial and in depth. I'm not good at, even just watching 20-second video after 20-second video. I like depth. I like conversation. So I don't know if I'll ever catch on to TikTok, but I wouldn't discount it as a potentially positive thing when you see how many people have been able to grow and thrive and share their work and their art through there. So not for me, but definitely great for art. Yeah.
Because like you said, the duration gets shorter. Like by every new platform, it just gets shorter. And I feel like that applies with what we now know as, they call it pop poetry, like prose. And I feel like the older generation, especially the older poets, don't really acknowledge it as poetry. A lot of people, let's say Rupi Kaur or Lang Live, they posted just a really, really small part of their poetry. And even when we purchase their books, it's mostly just, a liner or two in the book. Yeah. What's your thought about that? What's your thought of, what's poetry to you? Is it just like what's been on trend these days, or do you have a special place in your heart for, like long stanza?
I think poetry is any expression through words. It's what I say in every workshop. A lot of my poetry, I have one-liners. A lot of my more recent stuff has been really short. And I like it. Like, there should be no barriers on expression. I create long ones. I perform long ones because they're the ones that are created to be performed. They're ones that often have something strong that I want people to hear. But when I just write for the page, it could go between, 5 words to 20 words to, a page. There should be no restrictions there. I think that would defeat the purpose of poetry. And I think that it's disingenuous for people to think that poetry has always been a certain way, because, I mean, you can quote a whole lot of classic poets that, just do 2 stanzas. Bam. Like, that's it. I mean, one of my favorite poems by Robert Frost, who's like known as a classic in the English language, short poems. I only remember his short poems, Rumi, from 1,000 years ago. That was, he's got some really beautiful short, I think poetry has always done that. And I think that it's just a thing because poetry is becoming more accessible potentially. People are trying to find barriers to kind of like decide who gets to be in it and who doesn't. But I think it's such a beautiful thing if young people are finding their voices and writing, a few lines.
Yeah, totally. Because I feel like because of social media now, like you say, poetry has become even more accessible because compared to, way long ago, poetry or literature on its own, it's kind of this, exclusive, intelligent thing that's only certain kind of people able to enjoy, without actually remembering poet like Emily Dickinson, really, really short prose. Do you think it kind of affects how the younger generation ability to understand, because they have such short attention span, so to speak? I don't believe in it, but like we've been watching right now, TikTok, it's short, tweet gets even shorter, every articles, a lot of journals, there are not a lot of journals published in this few years compared to 10 years ago. Like, how do you feel the journey of the younger generations later on when it comes to expressing one's deep emotion through words.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that it's not, I think, yeah, I don't know if it's that our attention span has gotten shorter or there are more expectations to be across everything, like we talked about before. Because I think that in the end, if you're really interested in something, you're going to read a whole article, you're going to watch a whole movie, but it's because, you know, whether it's journalism, whether it's either other forms of marketing, they want to get everyone's attention. And so they're trying to, they're trying to make things so that everyone can read it. And I just think that that in itself is unrealistic. So I think it's a bigger job for young people to actually work out who they are in this space, because they've got messages coming at them from everywhere, you know, different messages, different opinions. And that's why it's hard, I feel, for us to focus. So that's our challenge. And I think that, you know, expression has such a huge role to play in that, because once we actually learn to express what it is that we want to say, who we are in this space, what we actually care about versus what we think we have to care about, and then we can actually put our time and attention into those things. And I think that I think that that's more powerful. And in terms of us and our expression, I think that we're in a place where we can get deeper in our feelings, because I think we're forced to explore, and we're forced to challenge ourselves and to challenge each other. And I think that the result of that is finding something that's authentic, you know, if we take it all the way, if we don't settle on the expectations. And that authenticity leads to sharing, openness, being, creating. Yeah.
And that's such a good note to end this. We have a few minutes left, but it's been such a great time talking to you about poetry, mainly about poetry, you know, because it's such a sad moment to experience. I feel like now we have to disconnect to connect, but I'm glad that we have this platform of Kembali Festival to get in touch with our poetic soul. Thank you, Manal, for being here with us.
Thank you for
and thank you for reading us your poetry. And for you guys who are watching this, please go check out Manal Younus and her activism, her poetic fabulousness on her YouTube channel. And I hope you have, you research more about your favorite authors for this festival. There's a lot more coming up. And thank you for the festival for having us here. And I hope wherever you guys are, I hope this pandemic will never get you down. This is just the beginning. This is time for us to connect, even though through a small screen. But thank you. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I hope all the best for whatever you're trying to do these days, because I'm going to stalk you like crazy. And I hope everyone's going to do that for Manal, so she can post a lot more videos on her YouTube channel. And with that, again, thank you, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching, guys.
Bye. All the best.
Kembali 20 was made possible with the support of the Yayasan Mudra Swari Saraswati Patron Program and their donors. The Patron Program was created to seek assistance for the survival of both festivals and the foundation. By making a valuable contribution to the Yayasan Patron Program, you will be directly involved in delivering both festivals in due time. Your contribution will guarantee the future of Indonesia's most meaningful cross-culture platform of words, ideas, culture, and the creative arts. Follow at Ubud Writers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or visit ubudwritersfestival.com for more information about the Patron Program.